Florida State won a game on Friday night in Louisville with a host of players banged up, injured, and out. What's the status of those guys injured? What's the plan if they can't go this week? And what will happen at the all-important quarterback position when BC comes to town this weekend? Guys, thanks for tuning in. Do me a favor before we even get underway and smash that subscribe button that's below right here. Really appreciate you doing that. If I miss anything or if I leave anybody out, hit the comments and let me know your thoughts or any questions you have about that. Running down the injuries really quickly, we've got Jordan Travis, starting quarterback, that's out. I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about him. We're going to get to him, but I think there are some other important positions that we need to talk about as well. Starting left tackle Robert Scott, Jared Verse, defensive end Fabien Lovett, didn't make the trip to Louisville last week. His backup, Malcolm Ray, Duke Cooper, who played in a handful of snaps but didn't get a lot of burn, and then Winston Wright. We're still monitoring that situation and want to give you the latest that we know there. And there are a few things we know about these injuries, a few things we think, and a few things that we can't confirm just yet, but I do want to chat with you guys about them. We'll start at the left tackle position. Robert Scott went out with an apparent leg injury. I would be pretty surprised based on what I'm hearing if Robert Scott was back this week. I think Darius Washington stepped in and did a really good job there, and I would expect to see him play that position this week. You've then got Gibbons at left guard, Smith, Emmanuel, and Justine Turntine at the other tackle position. I think that offensive line will do pretty well together. They held up pretty well together after Scott went out. And so I think that's what you'll see the Noles roll with. Wouldn't rush Scott back and don't believe he'll be ready to be back this weekend. Fabien Lovett, guy that didn't make the trip on the defensive line to Louisville, got rolled up on, got hurt late in the LSU game, actually the last drive of the game, so very unfortunate there that it happened like that. But I doubt he's back for this weekend as well. I think that you're a couple of weeks away from seeing him back in action. Wake, maybe, but then I think as you get into Clemson, NC State, you could see Fabo get back in there and mix it up. I think that all of these things are to be taken with a grain of salt. If somebody's out there and practices all 4 or 5 days this week, they're going to get in. They're going to play. I think there's a little bit better chance that we see Malcolm Ray than Fabo, but I don't have confirmation that Malcolm will be back in there either. Malcolm backed up Fabo and then went down up there in Louisville. So I think that that's somebody that you can kind of keep an eye on. Maybe you get him back. Maybe you see him back in the lineup, and that would be big for the Noles. If not, I think the backup plan there is pretty obvious. Jarrett Jackson could get quite a bit of burn there. Obviously, Robert Cooper will be counted on to do quite a bit. He's been very good this year as well. And so that'd be kind of the duo, the tandem that I could see starting for Florida State on the defense at the defensive tackle position this weekend if Malcolm can't go. And as we expect, Fabo won't be back. Boston College does have 3 offensive linemen starters out for the year. I know that we have our troubles on the offensive line as well, but that'll help Florida State and is a big reason I don't think they feel the need to rush anyone back because BC's pretty banged up there too. And I like Florida State's depth on the defensive line. Moving out to that edge position, I would be pretty surprised if we saw Jared Verse back this weekend. I really like Briggs and Warner and McClendon. I think those guys will do a really good job. And again, against the depleted Boston College line, I don't think there's a reason to rush Verse back and risk injuring something worse. I think you let him heal up a little bit and see what happens over the next couple of weeks, see how he practices over the next few weeks and kind of mends up. Duke Cooper, Florida State's cornerback 1, only played a handful of snaps. I just don't know if he's going to be ready to go full-time here. Flowers is really good for BC, but I do have a lot of confidence in Renardo Green and Kevin Noles and Greedy Vance back there. I thought Jerry Jones did an okay job playing a lot of snaps this week. I would not be surprised if Cooper does play. I just don't think he's ready to go for a full game just yet. I think that he's got to get a little bit more rested and ready. We were hearing about 50-50 going into that Louisville game. Obviously ended up being less than that as he was not able to make it in, but for I think just a handful of snaps, 3-4 snaps is what he played on Friday night. We're getting to Jordan Travis here, but just before we do, I want to chat about Winston Wright. We believe Winston Wright is still progressing. I've been targeting that Wake game or so to have him back based on not only what Winston told us, but also what we've been hearing through the grapevine, through a couple of people inside the program. That timeline could change. You could see that delay a week or two, but you've seen him get in practices over the last couple of weeks. You've seen him do some kick return stuff. You've seen him field some punts. So I think that the more you see him practice, the more you can tell he's progressing, the closer he is to cutting him back. If he doesn't practice at all over the next 2 weeks, there may have been a setback. It's all going to kind of be determined on what happens there. But I do want to keep tracking that Winston Wright development because Florida State's wide receivers do look really good. Adding him would be a massive, massive benefit to that group. Finally, Jordan Travis, he sent out a tweet that he got good news. Based on a couple of people that I spoke with, the good news was that he wasn't gone for the season. It wasn't something crazy like an Achilles snapping in half or something like that. I do believe it is, lower leg, probably an ankle based on the way that he's been taped up and photographed around town and that you've seen him. I think that if this was a final game of the year or you were in some kind of ACC championship, I think he could probably kind of get through this and potentially play. I don't think it's necessary in this. And I think that with the way that Tate played and what he showed in the second half against Louisville, with how decimated Boston College is from injuries and just how much better of a team Florida State is in general, I would go with Tate here. I would move to your backup plan and let Jordan rest up to maybe be back for that weight game, maybe the Clemson, NC State timeline, somewhere in the next 3. I think if there's no reason to rush him back and potentially have him injure himself further, I'd let that leg, let that ankle most likely heal up. I would have Jordan available just in case there was any kind of a catastrophe type situation. If he's able to go at all, I would have him ready and have him dressed. But I think Tate can handle this game. I think the Vegas line, which we'll break down a little later in the week, can also kind of point to that and say, like, hey, even with the uncertainty at quarterback, we still think Florida State's about 3 scores better than Boston College. How much Jordan practices this week will be a big indicator. The guys at practice aren't necessarily going to report on that directly or tell you, oh, this guy took X snaps and this guy took Y number of snaps. But I do think it's something to kind of keep an eye out for, see if you can pick up any of the hints that those guys like to drop. If he's 85% or 90% or more healthy, I'd probably lean Jordan. If he's less, if he's 75, 70, below that, I'd probably go with Tate here. I think that Tate showed you that he can go out and win you a ball game. You can lean on your running backs. You can lean on your offensive line being really good. And Tate can make the throws when necessary if set up well by Norvell. Obviously, you won't hear any kind of announcements until just before the game. I think Mike's pretty good at the gamesmanship side of things and not wanting injuries to get out and things released. But I think that you'll kind of see that go that way. I think my gut here on Tuesday, 4 days from kickoff, would be that Tate ends up starting the game. I think he'll finish it. I think he'll play a really good game, and then we'll reevaluate Jordan as the weeks go on. Jordan is able to progress a little bit faster. Jordan's able to get back and get in the mix a little bit quicker. You could see him this weekend, but I think Tate will probably be the direction that this staff goes this weekend. Hey, what did we miss? Did we miss something? Is there a player that we didn't talk about that you have a question on? Hit the comments. I'll make sure to respond to it either on the next video or I'll respond directly in the comments. Hit the subscribe button if you appreciate the content. We've got a lot more coming out this week and over the next 4 days until kickoff on Saturday. We should have videos, multiple videos dropping every day to take you right up until kickoff against BC. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out, and go Noles.